All right, everyone, hello. It's funny using Maldi here. So I've been working on some testing here in Nightreign, and I've got a relatively big project that I've been working on. But in the process of doing that project, which I don't know if I'll ever finish, I had a question in my brain, and that was how good or bad is upgrading your starting weapon in Nightreign? So I'm just going to be doing this testing right now, at least in Wilder, if it's like the most, like, I don't know, important information you've ever seen. I could do some more of it, or you can do some more of it, and I'll share those resources. So I used a combination of mods, well, really just one mod, to kind of do a little bit of this testing. I found that if you use the free reign mod, which you can use to practice against Everdarks or normal bosses, as well as just explore the map if you want to practice doing like parkour and stuff like that. You can go back and forth with your weapons. You can hold on your weapons, hold on to your items, and just test them that way. Obviously, only do this offline. You will probably get banned if you do any of this. Bring it online. Okay, so I did a bunch of testing, and I got some numbers relative to the starting weapon. So I'm just gonna do this. I'm just gonna show the screenshots that I took and put them up on screen, and we will kind of talk about what we're looking at. So what I wanted to do was compare a bunch of different types of weapons at rarity, purple rarity, because I wanted to see how great is the spread. So say you really love the greatsword moveset or dagger moveset or whatever other moveset in your starting character, but you don't know if you'll ever be guaranteed that weapon again. Or say you want to imbue it or put a skill on that, and I will talk about that in a moment. How much total AP are you losing as a consequence of doing that, right? So what I did here is I took a variety of the physical scaling great swords. So these are only physical scaling. There's no element imbued in them. They only get physical damage up. And as we can see here, upgraded at a level 15 Wilder, Great Sword is 192 on the lowest end. So out of all of the physical scaling, exclusively physical scaling Great Swords in the game, Wilder's Great Sword, physical only, appears to be the weakest. On the other hand, there's a lot of elemental, rarity level rare affinity Great Swords. So actually just going to pure physical, which is actually kind of interesting if you wanted to stay pure physical for whatever reason, Gargoyle's Greatsword is on the higher end. So it goes from 192 up to 201. So at least in Wilder's case, and I'm assuming we can do a bit of extrapolation across the line for everyone except for either maybe Iron Eye or Revenant for interesting reasons, you do lose damage. But when you do the math, it's really only about a 4 or 5% loss. Now, of course, if you were to start scaling that up on the high end, it's like the equivalent of having maybe one less Everjail. So what does that mean? That means if you're starting the game and you've just got, for some reason, you've routed through the mines and you've got yourself the ability to upgrade a weapon to rare, if there's nothing special on your starting weapon, you will almost always be better off upgrading either a normal weapon type of the type that you want, or probably another type of weapon that suits your scaling a bit better. The starting weapons in general are going to be the weakest weapons. Okay, so that being said, the next question is, how does this change if we imbue the weapon? All right, so the next question is on imbuement. So if you go to the reference for Nightreign, it's really a wonderful resource, and there's a lot of great information there. And I would say, by and large, everything feels to be right on the money. And so going by that on its own, it would seem like there may be a use case for imbuing your weapon. But let me just show you how it works. So we should have just a normal holy damage greatsword. So one versus the other. This should be our normal greatsword, and we want to hit it twice for some reason. I don't know why. So it does 122. When I switch to holy, it's 123. So there is, technically speaking, in terms of total AP, there is not any AP lost. In fact, we do get a slight boost in AP. The issue is, just by hitting this training dummy, you're not really given very good information on exactly what the elemental ratio is. So if you followed my wilds content, I'm sorry. If you followed my wilds content, you remember there was a while there we're talking about elemental ratio on the enemies that we're fighting. In this case, we should talk a little bit about the elemental ratio on the weapons we're using. So I did a lot of testing because apparently, according to the spreadsheet, at the lower end, we would only be losing 30 AP and adding 33 AP back in. But the problem is at least when I did my testing, and who knows, maybe I did something wrong. It may be that because I'm level 15 as Wilder, the scaling changes, and so the AP that is added is not reflected in the scaling. So that could be part of it. But be that as it may, I did a lot of testing, and as far as I can tell, with a base Wilder Greatsword, at the high end, when we just add the Holy, you know, we've got 21 element to 102 raw. You know, that's 1/5 roughly of our raw damage, making imbuing your weapon, at least for Wilder and probably across the board, not a good choice. If you had 2 bits of your relic that were a god roll, and the third roll was an imbuement with the intention of either A, throwing out the weapon as soon as you found something better, or B, just keeping it around as a God forbid, I found no other element and the boss has a critical element weak spot. So things that I'm thinking of could be Fulgur, could be Gladius, could be Holster. Those two really want Holy. Fulgur, of course, really wants Lightning. Everything else, it's not critical. Obviously, you want more damage. But the issue is if you're just looking for damage, it's terrible. you don't lose damage, but if you were to try and start to really get high-end affinity scaling to really exploit the elemental weakness, going with the choice of imbuing your weapon is really bad. So don't do that. Okay, instead, if you were to do something like put Flaming Strike on your starting weapon, not only is it a good attack skill on its own, the amount of damage that is then added to the weapon is roughly, if not exactly equal to what the damage would have been anyway. So you can see here, we still have our base raw power. It's 122. And then we have the element that is added on top. So nothing is subtracted. Things are only added. So now we're at plus 21. So we're dealing more damage. And you can see, even though I would definitely not recommend running your build like this, if you were to get any number of added affinity boosts, it would technically go on top. This isn't how I would run this. This would be sort of if you just wanted to stack more physical attack up and then make sure that you had some additional benefit to your weapon. While this is ultimately not suitable for really any type of run, because your goal should be to find just a better weapon with stronger affinity in order to fight a Night Lord at the end that is weak to that element, or in some cases that ailment, it does give you potentially faster clear times on the main map. Because what it would do was it would guarantee your ability to kind of exploit any sort of minor elemental weakness the boss has in terms of like a flinches or stagger or anything else like that. So that would be nice on that end. But then you could instead entirely focus on boosting physical attack up. So anything that you're going to be fighting out in the field is going to be weak to physical one way or the other, unless, of course, it's a gargoyle or something like that. And it would be the most broadly useful weakness across the board. So gimmicks aside, if I were to suggest anything now, it would be pretty much across the board. Don't use imbuing your weapon. If you're the sort of character that really struggles early game and you want to provide some sort of utility to your team, a weapon skill can be helpful. Something like Hoarfrost Stomp, Poison Mist, especially if you're going to be fighting Gaping Maw, can be okay. Other types of attacks, Flaming Strike, Lightning Strike, stuff like that, I think I would generally avoid, only because you're going to be so limited with your initial 3 slots. So something like Wilder, I'm going to be using the Earring. I'm going to be using something that has Everjail on it, and ideally Stone Sword Key, unless I've got like a really great Stone Sword Key Deep Relic, and then something that has Night Invader. If either your Everjail or your Night Invader happen to have the weapon skill on there, so that you were going to be able to get that boost on your weapon as a backup against the Night Lord, I think that's okay. But as we saw through the testing, it's certainly not something I would recommend you carry your starter weapon all the way to the end, only because the physical scaling is a little bit less, and the elemental ratio is going to be so low that you're not going to be really exploiting the bonus damage you could be getting from just higher elemental scaling options. All right, so God help me, I've been recording for about 40 minutes. Hopefully some of this knowledge has been helpful for you. I am in Deep 5 now. I will be trying to share the Deep 5 knowledge that I have with you soon. We'll talk a little bit about routing. We'll be talking about general overall buffs and why we take them. But until then, enjoy this, and see you next time.